Hello, welcome to the first Walkie Talkie of the week. Yeah, it's overcast, windy, a little bit chilly, but that's nothing special. Not for around these parts anyway. But yeah, it's my first Walkie Talkie of February. Of course, I did the Sunday stroll, which was my first video of February. So yeah. Let's get through this month, then we're heading into spring. But not necessarily better weather. Need to get my car's battery on charge, see if I can get the bloody thing to work. I may have another place that might be able to have a look at it. See if they can fix this mysterious electrical problem that it has. Hopefully they can. It's been a bit difficult over winter. Over the Christmas period, not moving it much. That's not helped, obviously. But the battery needs charging up. And it's a bit of a bugger to get the battery out of this car. So I have one of these chargers, but I don't need it raining. And the weather's been a bit unreliable, so I just need a day where it's not going to rain. I'll get the damn thing charged up, aired out, and then see about getting it to this place and see if they can have any joy trying to fix this damn electrical issue. Failing that, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So yeah, I've been trying to think of a decent topic for today, and I think I'll talk about games that are sort of written off, but they're not that bad. Games that, I mean, I suppose you could look at them on one level and say, yeah, they're really bad. But then you could look at them at another level and go, but I still had a bit of fun playing them. Maybe you call it guilty pleasures, although I don't feel any guilt for liking them. That's the thing. So it just seems a bit of a... I mean, that seems to be the common turn of phrase for these type of things. But like I say, I don't feel any real guilt in liking them, to be honest. So I think I'll run with that. I've got a couple of examples. But yeah, the games that, you know, from a technical perspective, they are really, really poor. You know, they're not going to do any great shakes from that sense. Maybe they were overhyped and under-delivered, but I was still able to get some fun out of them. We'll see. But that's kind of what I'm going to go with. Because there is quite a number of games out there that, you know, some really are bad, but somebody always manages to get some enjoyment from them. You can look past the jankiness and still manage to have some fun. So yeah, well, we'll cover that in the park. So I'll see you then. So I suppose I'd have to title this video Guilty Pleasures, because just for the sake of, I don't know, coming up with a short enough title that covers the point, I probably put a question mark after guilty, because no, I don't feel guilty for liking these things. But yeah, I'll kick it off with the number one. And this is probably because this one courted quite a bit of controversy when it came out. And that's Aliens Colonial Marines. Now, I've been following the progress of this game since it was announced. God, it was probably in the early 2000s. It was originally going to be a PlayStation 2 game. And it didn't actually come out until, I think it was the last year of the 360 and PS3 generation. And I was really looking forward to that game. I really wanted it. I love the Alien films, and the thought of playing the part of a colonial marine was really exciting. You know, the first person shooter universe. And yeah, I saw the footage that they showed at E3 and it looked absolutely fantastic. It really did. It looked really good. And graphics looked great. The gameplay looked great. And I was excited for it. And then it come out and it looked absolutely nothing like it did at E3. It looked its age. It looked like a really old game. Had that game come out, I think at the beginning of that console generation, then I think it would have been much better received. But the problem was, coming out at the end of that generation meant that it just meant that better looking things had been out before. And it didn't really matter to your average gamer that it had been in production hell for like what, over a decade. That didn't matter. It was just that this didn't look anywhere near as good as what other games at that time were looking. And we were right on the doorstep of the next generation of consoles, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So we were starting to see some things for that generation, which of course is going to look even better. So actually releasing a game that looked very, very old, and then of course you're charging full price for it, just wasn't going to sit very well with people, and it didn't. But I think the big thing was the absolute bullshit footage that was shown at E3. That was wrong. That was a lie. And people had grown very tired of it by then. We had this all the time. In fact, there was a phrase coined to describe it called bullshot, which means it was game footage or screenshots that were clearly beyond the system or clearly not what the final game was going to look like. and people have grown weary of it. I remember seeing game footage for some PlayStation 2 games, namely a game called, it was a Bouncer, and they tried to pass off full motion video as in-game graphics, and that didn't go down very well. I think we can all remember the Killzone 2 footage controversy as well, that generation, where they show footage of graphics that look way beyond the capabilities of the PS3. Certainly, it looked way beyond anything that we'd seen at that time. And that very same scene, when it appeared in the game, that didn't look as good as what they showed. So people were very, very weary of this, and they had grown fed up of it. In fact, there were class action lawsuits started to be put out there, where people were saying, look, we've been missold this, we pre-ordered this based on this footage, and that footage was, well, basically a lie. So people were getting fed up of it, and on it went. So come Aliens Colonial Marines, at that point, people had had enough. I remember when they showed Killzone Shadowfall, that actually looked really, really good on the PS4. And people were actually like dubious about that. But actually that did turn out to be what the game looked like. You know, for a launch game on the PS4, it was stunning. It still looks really good now, somewhat 12, 13 years later. But people were just very dubious. And of course, with Colonial Marines, people just pointed out, well, this was a straight up lie. But when I got the game, I already knew it was going to be a bit janky. I'd already seen the reviews. But I'd wanted this game for so long, and I was prepared to give it a chance. And yeah, graphically, for its time, compared to its contemporaries, it is bloody awful. I had it on the Xbox 360, and then I got it on PC a few years ago. And even on PC, with all the graphic settings maxed out, it's still crap. It still looks like crap. And there are some sections in it, gameplay-wise, are pretty awful. It's very janky. The AI of the aliens is hilariously bad. A lot of the time they would just run at you. I think they did actually patch the AI, but at launch, I mean, they just ran straight at you. It was like a shooting gallery. You know, they weren't leaping from wall to wall and doing all that stuff that one would expect the aliens to do. In fact, I think it was in 2010, Rebellion did an Aliens vs Predator game, which was just superior in every way, shape and form. Graphically, gameplay. So that didn't help either. I I mean, certainly graphically that game blows Colonial Marines away. But in playing Go Back to Colonial Marines, in terms of playing that game, I actually found myself kind of enjoying it a little bit at first. I thought, well, yeah, you know what, it looks like a load of ass, but I'm actually having a bit of fun playing this. It felt like I was in an Aliens movie. It was giving me the gameplay satisfaction that I wanted. It just looked awful. And it wasn't the game that Gearbox had shown at E3. But what I was actually playing, what was in front of me, I was kind of enjoying. I was having a lot of fun with it. And I ended up playing it all the way through, ended up finishing the game, and thought, yeah, you know what? I enjoyed that. I thought it looked dreadful. It was a very, very poor looking game. But I had fun. I had a lot of fun playing it. In some ways, I kind of got a bit mad as well, because I thought, you know what? This would have been an absolute fantastic game that they just put a bit more effort into polishing it, into improving the graphics. The graphics, you could say, were functional. I mean, it did feel like an Aliens game. It looked like one. And there were some cool bits in it. The part where you were creeping around with the aliens that would explode if they got too close to you, or if you startled them. That was pretty good, because you don't have a weapon. And when you're being hunted by the genetically altered alien called the Raven, that was genuinely tense. So there were some really good bits in it. But then you've got the bit where you're fighting the Raven with a power loader, and it's just pure jank. It really is. It's just janky as hell. But yeah, I still enjoyed it, and I did play through it again on PC, and I maxed everything up, the settings up, and as I say, it still looked awful. But that came with the Stasis Interrupted DLC, which sort of retcons Hicks not being the dude in the cryopod in Alien 3. Sulaco had got boarded and they swapped him out for somebody else. I guess that was the way of bringing back Hicks. And Michael Biehn came back and he did the voice for him, which was pretty cool. I think it was safe to say that very few people appreciated Newton Hicks being killed off at the beginning of Alien 3. Well, I mean, they were killed off during the opening credit sequence. They weren't in the film. They sort of died off screen almost, which was just a tragedy, really, from a storytelling perspective as a sequel. But yeah, it's not a great game, but I was able to have some fun with it. And I guess that's the important thing, isn't it? You're able to you're able to extract a little bit of fun from playing the game. The next on my list is another Gearbox release in and around that same period, and that was Duke Nukem Forever. And it was an appropriately titled name because I think it had been in development for over 13 years. And that was another one I was waiting for. I really love Duke Nukem 3D. I still enjoy going back and playing it today. And Duke Nukem Forever was always going to be out of time, a misplaced out of time character. You can't have a game that's in development for that long and it come out and ever live up to the expectation. And again, there was a lot of jank and it was a bit weird. In some places the game actually looked really good, and in others it really did look like a game that should have been released probably like 11 years before it was. So you could tell this thing had been passed around a bit. People had worked on it. I think companies had gone under and Gearbox ended up getting the rights to it, and they pretty much finished it up, polished it up a bit, and then put it out there as a curiosity. And yeah, I think that you can't really call Gearbox for that because, well, they weren't the ones developing it from the offset. It was just the fact that they acquired the license, and then they got obviously that, and I think it was like, look, you know, we can either shelve this or we can spend a little bit of time finishing it up and putting it out there. And I'm glad they did, because beneath the jank again, there's actually a pretty good game in there. There's a lot of fun. It's a Duke Nukem game, and people might think by the time it come out, like, the culture had changed. There was more sort of pearl clutching individuals out there, and it's like, it's Duke Nukem. If you'd have changed, or if you'd have taken all of that, then that wouldn't be a Duke Nukem game. It's a product of its time. Duke Nukem is a product of his time. But that's why his character was loved. It's a cheeseball thing, you know? Cheesy one-liners, you know, not being a particularly politically correct person, whatever that. I mean, political correctness is a nebulous thing that changes all the time, so I would never waste my time trying to stick to a principle that changes frequently, especially when you're making a game. But that was the character of Duke Nukem, and it was a lot of fun. Nobody's taking a Duke Nukem game, by the way, and thinking that that's a serious representation of society. If you are, I think you might have some problems that need addressing. He's a bit like, he deliberately is a character that is out of time. He's a throwback. It's like Austin Powers. He was created deliberately that way. If you don't get it, if you don't get the joke, then you're kind of missing the point. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed that too. It delivered what I expected from a Duke Nukem game. And it, in places, like I say, looked like a 13-year-old game. And in other places, it didn't look too bad. But it was actually playable. And it was full of Dukeisms. You know, that's his really cheeseball one-liners. A bit like Ash, you know, in Evil Dead. When they did the Ash versus the Evil Dead TV show, they nailed it. That is a great show. It's one of the best TV shows there's been. They utterly nailed it. They didn't change Ash's character. And that's why it works. You're giving people what they expect. And that's the gag. You know, if you start to try and change these things up, people are just not going to respond to it. They're not going to like it. I remember at the time there were people, you know, who were either didn't play Duke Nukem 3D, didn't understand the character of Duke Nukem, but they sure as hell didn't get it, that were writing reviews or articles criticising the misogynistic element to the game. And it's like, that's the joke. That was the character, that was the joke. It's exaggerated, it's cartoon. It's not making a statement. Wind your neck in. But yeah, again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So those are probably the top two for me. They probably are the top two. But yeah, I enjoyed it immensely. What else? I actually just focused on those two, really. They were the two standout ones. That's nothing against Gearbox, by the way. I mean, Gearbox, conversely, have made many games that I enjoy. You know, the Borderlands games. Didn't so much enjoy the pricing for Borderlands 4, but from what I've played of the game so far, I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed all the other Borderlands games that have come out. I enjoyed the add-on packs that they did for the original Half-Life. So yeah, I think they did the Brothers in Arms games as well, if memory serves. Very much enjoyed them too. So yeah, it just so happens I think they were the two games that they kind of came out close together. I think about a year, 2 years within each other. Colonial Marines, I think, copped a lot more flack, really because of that E3. I think that did damage Randy Pitchford's reputation, and that stuck for a lot of people. But although I totally disagreed with what they did, and what he signed off on, being the guy in charge at Gearbox with that footage. He was by no means the only one. It was a common thing back then. As I say, it was common enough to have coined the phrase bullshot. So to single him out for eternal damnation when every game publisher around that time was doing the same thing, to me is just, it's having a dishonest take. You know, if you can turn your blind eye to what other companies were doing, but not that, well, what does that say? You've got to have consistency in your judgment. Otherwise, your judgment becomes suspect. It becomes inherently biased, either for or against someone. So, I've never held it over him. I was annoyed about what he did. And I get annoyed on a case-by-case basis. I think that he made a lot of ill-informed statements when leading up to Borderlands 4. You know, he was tone deaf, and he deserved the criticism he got with regards to the pricing of that game. But it was no more tone deaf than when Sony were releasing the PS3, and was it Ken Kutaragi, or was it the other fella? Oh God, I've forgotten his name. He took over for a while. Oh God, what was his name now? Forgotten. What was his name? Anyway, there was actually a parody, well, then it was Twitter, while he was in charge at Sony. There was a parody account of him. I've forgotten his name now, but he's the one who come out with the Ridge Racer when showcasing the PS3. Yeah, he came out with it. Oh, I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Anyway, yeah, you know, I think it was Ken Kutaragi said that, you know, okay, about getting another job or something to be able to buy the PS3. He's like, no mate, people that work full-time jobs and have families, I'm going to get another job just to buy your piece of plastic. Totally ill-advised. Was it him? Anyway, that was the whole debacle, and to me that was worse. I mean, what Randy Pitchford said was, fans of Borderlands will find a way. It's not quite the same, but equally as ill-advised. So, like, yeah, I mean, you can go down through the years, I suppose. There's probably a lot of games that I've played that were tragic. I remember I played a game back on the Commodore 64 called, is it Halls of Things or Halls of the Things? By God, that was low rent. I remember, I think, a review in a magazine back in the day gave it like a 1 or a 2 out of 10, and the sort of the tagline at the end I will always remember of the review was that the tagline went, somewhere someone is extracting the urine. It always stuck with me, that line, I mean, dear God, that was a pretty horrific game, you know, to be absolutely sure it was. But you know what? I put a hell of a lot of time into playing it. It was just very basic, like 2D, poorly animated stick figure type person going around this maze. It was absolutely tragic. But dear God, I played that game to death. I mean, it's not a guilty pleasure because I bloody hate it, and there's a video I've got up on my channel of it, but the C64 version of Chase HQ, I've probably put, it wasn't a pleasure, but I did play on it quite a lot. That's for certain. I put far too many hours into that, and that was, I mean, it was woeful. Absolutely woeful. But it was back then, it was like, well, I've just spent £10 on this, which, you know, for me back in that era was like a couple of weeks' wages at my part-time job, and they wouldn't let me take it back to Boots where I got it from. I tried to take it back and say it didn't work, and they said, well, we'll have to swap it for the same game. And I was like, shit. I lived with the wonderful naivety that the replacement copy they sent me packing with was somehow going to be better, that somehow Ocean Software had sent out the wrong version of the game. No, of course they didn't. That was it. That was the blissful naivety of my childhood right there, actually believing that such things occurred and that I would actually get a game that looked like a C64 game and actually ran like a C64 game and not something that looked like my C64 was going to explode through shame. But I wouldn't say that was a guilty pleasure. I spent far too many hours playing the damn thing because I was determined to wring any possible enjoyment out of it. Yeah. There are many. Let's try and think. I'm trying to think of another example. Oh, Turning Point Fall of Liberty. That was a game on the Xbox 360. By God, that game was terrible. It was like an alternate past where Winston Churchill gets run over and he doesn't survive being run over by a taxi in New York. The Nazis take over Europe, and you're a construction worker and they invade. Like they come along and invade New York while you're on this skyscraper. I played the demo, and the demo was that bit at the beginning. And yes, the graphics were not very good. But the demo was intriguing. I kind of liked it. And I thought, well, maybe the graphics will be spruced up when it comes out. No, they weren't. But that opening bit where the Nazis turn up in New York Harbor and you've got to get off this skyscraper thing and get down there and all of this while everything's blowing up around you. That was the best part of the game. And that was it. Everything, it went downhill massively after that. It wasn't even a very good shooter. The mechanics were pretty awful. Everything just seemed off. But I did finish it. Now, was that a guilty pleasure? Well, I did actually play it twice. So you could say, maybe. But yeah, it was pretty damn awful. I think what it was is I wanted an alternate history game in the mould of Wolfenstein, and that was on a bit of a hiatus at the time. It was did it come out before or after Wolfenstein 2009? I think it came out, must have come out before. And anyway, I wanted something like that, and I just thought it'd be interesting. And it was horrific. It wasn't very good. But I did, again, sort of rather bizarrely got some form of entertainment from it. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I did. And there was another one around that time as well. I'm just trying to think. Was it called Legendary? Yeah, I think it was called Legendary. I think that got some pretty bad reviews as well. I actually didn't mind it. It was a bit of a novel idea of these Pandora's box getting opened and all of these mythological creatures coming out and attacking, like modern day. Is it New York? I don't know. That was actually all right. So yeah. Quite a few of these were a bit janko-tastic, bit rubbish, but I still managed to get some enjoyment from them. So yes. So I think we'll call it there. Just a few examples. Some were hilariously bad. Some weren't quite as bad as what people made them out to be. And some should have been better, but in all of the examples I was able to, apart from Chase HQ on the C64, I was able to wring some enjoyment out of them. And I don't regret it, apart from Chase HQ on the C64. Which was annoying because I did love the arcade game. However, when I've gone back and played other versions of it, that arcade game was phenomenally tough. Unfairly tough in some points. It was definitely designed to be a coin eater. But I still had fun with the arcade. But yeah. Right. We'll call it there. It's shop and food time for me. Oh, I managed to get out with no rain. Whether that will hold off, I've been hearing some horror stories about what's supposed to be arriving in the UK later this week, so we'll see. But in the meantime, that's that, and thanks for watching, and I will catch you all later.